Yo, good morning. Another early one for you this morning because I'm working again. Still in a hotel. Still got funky lights. But good morning. This is your SitRep for today, the 30th of June, 2022. And still stuff happening in the world. So let's jump into it. Thanks again for joining me. Thanks again for everyone who's been dropping comments and stuff like that in. I read them. I appreciate them. I don't always answer them. It's my inner introvert coming out, just being like, cool. I shouldn't thumbs up my phone, but that's what I do. Anyway, what's happening in the world today? Heaps of stuff, mainly focused around shortages. A lot of stuff about shortages overnight. I mean, there's a lot of news. This is just the stuff that piques my interest. For those who haven't joined me before, I go through stories that pique my interest and talk about them from the perspective of how we can prepare ourselves better for the coming future, whatever that may hold. And it looks like at the moment it may hold some slightly tougher times than what we've been having so far. The economic markets don't look like they're doing anything great right now, and a lot of signals and a lot of the experts are starting to come out and say, yeah, things aren't probably going to go in a fantastic way. I think everyone's waiting for this huge crash. What I think will happen is what I always talk about with the collapse of civilization too. I think we will look back on this time in 30 or 50 years and go, yeah, those people, they were in the collapse. Yeah, look at what the stock market was doing then, even though it's sort of, it's up and down and up and down. Oh, it's flatlining at the moment. We're kind of in a month-long slow-mo crash at the moment. Anyway, that's what's happening in the stock markets. Crypto looks like it's down again. Gold and silver's down. Most markets are down. Unfortunately for Australians, the Aussie dollar is down against the greenback, against the US dollar. So doesn't mean that gold and silver price hasn't moved greatly for us. However, I will say this: if you are interested in buying silver, I assess it as a pretty good price right now. You can get some pretty good deals on silver. Gold's not too bad, and gold's, you're not shopping for deals. It's not end of financial year deals when you're looking at precious metals. But silver's at a pretty good price. If you want to buy a little bit of bulk silver, I would say now is probably as good a time as any to do it. No guarantee. Could bottom out from here. I've got no idea. It just never has before. So anyway, let's get on with the stuff. Stop talking about things that you like. US military struggles to recruit young Americans. Every US branch is toiling to meet requirement goals for 2022, NBC reports. The US military, quote, has not had such a hard time signing recruits since 1973, the year the US left Vietnam and the draft officially ended. So I guess the love for the US military might was at an all-time low around that point, 1973. Post-Vietnam, there's a lot of bad things happening for veterans there, and for the army as a whole, where it's kind of like gutted a little bit, torn apart, and not many people went in. Well, they're finding that their recruitment levels are now at that sort of space. Not surprising, really. Recruitment, there's a number of factors that go into recruitment. Okay, first off, why am I talking about this? A, I'm ex-military, so this is something that I'm always interested in. But B, our ability to actually exert our will or protect our way of life is based off our military. Our military is based off the human beings in it. So it's not just the people at the top, which don't get me started on, especially not with the Australian military at the moment. But anyway, that aside, it's the individuals that make up that military. So what we essentially have here, what we're seeing, is the effect of a very weakened society, or I'll put this another way, a society that's focus is somewhere else, is very much somewhere else. So if you don't have a big enough pool in which to draw from, you're just not going to be able to get those numbers. And that's what is happening now. Now, this isn't actually new for anyone who's kind of got their head in the game here. Like this sort of stuff, for me, where I'm interested in this, we've been looking at this for 10, 15 years, the decline of recruitment numbers. It's just getting to a critical point now. And when we think about the other side, what's going on, the potential other side of military forces that can draw in people in the millions, in the tens of millions, even in the hundreds of millions, it doesn't bode well that we're seeing this sort of stuff. And I'll just throw this quote out again, or not again. I'll put this quote up because I think this is very telling of where we are as a society and what you and I have to think about and what we have to do to make ourselves safe. With more young men and women than ever disqualified for obesity, drug use, or criminal records. Yeah. Obesity, drug use, and criminal records. This is kind of what we're going into. I mean, my personal take on this, actually, to be honest, is I think there should be a pathway for criminals to go into military service. If I was Prime Minister of Australia, that would be one of the things that I would be pushing for, that we can actually rehabilitate people, especially young people who have criminal records, through a military service type payback, instead of just throwing them into jail and hoping that rehabilitation system works, where it clearly does not. All statistical evidence points to the exact opposite of that. Whereas I think all three of those things, obesity, drug use, and criminal behavior or criminal records, could be alleviated through military service. So the fact that we're going, no, you can't come in because of that, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, that's my little rant for today, but this is something we need to think about. So obviously keeping ourselves physically fit. We can't always rely on outside forces. We can't rely on the government to give us the overarching support of security in our worlds. Less and less so we can, I believe, at least. And going into the future, I think their effect will be less and less. Their security effect will be less and less. So it's kind of up to us. And this is a little bit kind of esoteric for these sort of talks, but what I'm talking about here is us turning the tide, as it were, on society's trend at the moment, where we're getting fatter, dumber, more prone to distraction, more prone to things like drug use, more prone to addiction and things like that. Let's wheel it back. Let's be better human beings. That's essentially what I am getting on here and talking about is all about. So the fundament of it is that I want better human beings in the world, better, more prepared human beings, more self-reliant human beings. So anyway, that was there today. On top of this too, I didn't get to read the full story, and I just saw it pop up just before I jumped on here, but apparently the US Army has lowered its intelligence testing scores because of this. They're finding less recruiting. So they said, hey, all right, I know we said everyone had to have a high school diploma. No, you don't have to have that anymore. It's like, oh, can you not see where this is heading? Of course you want, in a big army, you want an element filled with dumb soldiers that just do what they're told. But in reality, the part of the military that I was in, you needed quite a high IQ score, or the IQ testing that they did, you needed quite a high score on that. So the aptitude testing to get into where I was in the military was relatively high. And, and it showed too that the average person that was in there was probably not your average, chicken. It was like, well, just, maybe just a little bit higher. And I think that's really what you want in your military force. You want your best and your brightest being able to do that. Anyway, let's get on with the news, hey? All right, let's talk about strategic level stuff. Former Russian president warns NATO encroaching on Crimea could lead to World War III. No surprises here, but they're obviously feeling threatened about Crimea. I couldn't quite find why exactly the former Russian president was worried so much about Crimea. But here's a quote: "For us, Crimea is part of Russia." That should be telling you a lot. For us, Crimea is part of Russia, and that means forever. Any attempt to encroach on Crimea is a declaration of war against our country. So I mean, on the whole, this is just more rhetoric that's coming out, which is increasing the tension in this area. But this is a very like clear signal, like this. Hey, if you're thinking of coming and getting Crimea, not going to happen. On the other side of house, more stuff's coming out of the White House, more stuff's coming out of the Pentagon, where they are clearly in backpedal mode now. It is very obvious to me that the US is all of a sudden going like, whoa, right, what we were backing, what we were saying, where Ukraine's going to push the Russians back and we're going to win, that's not going to happen. I think they've just clicked that it's not going to happen, and they are in backpedal mode. So they are, I would imagine there'll be some strong pressure in the next days and weeks being put on Zelensky to come out and say, hey, look, what we want to do is just stop the bleeding right now and stop Russia where they are. And that's that. And they can have Donbass and they can have Crimea, and that's that. I don't think Zelensky's going to go for that in any way, shape, or form. But who knows? Anyway, World War III, that's what's happening there. The BRICS, I love to talk about the BRICS. The Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, what do you call it? Alliance, I guess, loose alliance. And I keep talking about there's these other countries that I think are actually sort of part of it. And so another term that I've seen is BRICS Plus, and I think that's probably more accurate when we're describing this BRICS Plus. Iran and Argentina apply to join BRICS. So this is becoming much more of a formal alliance now, and other countries are starting to say, hey, we want in. We want in on this. Iran, unsurprisingly, one of the most sanctioned countries in the world. Yes, of course, they're going to go in. What can they offer BRICS? Not much, but the more the merrier, I think, is what they probably will be thinking. Argentina, the same. So, can they jump in there? Yep, they'll slide in there as well. And precedence already that there's a South American country in there. So think about this: an alliance that spans almost all continents, and a large sort of swathe of continents all across the world, and then and has a lot of landmass, has a lot of resources, and has a lot of human beings. The BRIC has about 40% of the human beings on Earth in it. BRICS Plus, we could start pushing up between. We could potentially get to an alliance that has 50% of the humans on the face of the Earth in it. Which is much more than Nato, which is much more than Five Eyes, which is much more than the Friends of the Blue Pacific, or whatever the fuck that one was called. All these other alliances. But the dodgeball teams are getting picked at the moment. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm taking from this. Watch that space. All right, let's start to talk about shortages and how they might affect us. There's quite a few, but a lot of stuff happening throughout Europe, unsurprisingly, and other parts of the world. But we'll talk about this because, as I've said before, when we get shortages, we get increases in prices. When we get increases in prices, they ripple out throughout the world because we've got an interconnected society. We've got interconnected economic systems, and we're still not in the place where we can isolate out and have cheaper stuff somewhere else because it creates a vacuum and things flow. So the market knows this, and instead of allowing that vacuum to happen and people to countries to make exorbitant amounts of money, what will happen is those countries just pump up to what everyone else has, i.e. Fuel. So fuel within Australia being up through the roof. I still there are reasons for it, yes, but I can't do the math on this and say yes, our fuel should be more than what Europe is paying for theirs. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. Our gas should be as much as what Europe's paying. No, that doesn't make sense either. Ours should be quite a bit smaller, quite a bit cheaper than theirs, but it's not, because our market looks at it and goes like, oh, what? People are selling gas at that much in Europe? Well, we can get away with it. Let's do it here in Australia. Oh, yeah, it's Putin. It's Putin. Yeah, Putin stole your gas, and now it costs more. Anyway, chemical giant could close plant due to gas shortage. German chemicals major BASF may be forced to halt production at the world's biggest chemicals plant in Ludwigshafen. The Wall Street Journal reported on Monday. It's citing shortages of cheap and abundant Russian gas, essentially saying, hey, we've got no cheap and abundant Russian gas, so we're going to have to shut down. And the question should be, well, can you do this with any gas? Can you do it another way or some other fuel? Or does it have to be gas? Or can we get more expensive gas and you charge more? No, we're shutting down. We're done. I mean, this is just, for me, this is exposing the system that we've had, that we've been living off the back of cheap fossil fuels for so long that it's not just like, oh, well, we'll make things more expensive now. We're so dependent on those cheap fuels that let me say this again, the world's biggest chemical plant, or one of the world's biggest chemical plants, shuts down. It just goes, nah, we're done. No more chemicals. It's a good thing we don't use chemicals in our daily lives. On top of this, EU nation warns of gas crisis domino effects. So this was quite an interesting story that was, I think it was coming out of maybe Italy, Politico magazine or newspaper, Politico, not sure what it is. But basically what they were saying, they were outlining this, and I think it's 100% correct. I read this, I was like, oh, somebody gets it, and they're putting it in mainstream media. Smaller countries like, yeah, we can get this bit of gas in, bang, we're at 100%. Oh, yep, you got 100%. Oh, you got 95%. That's cool, but if there's one country in the EU that has 70%, that's going to ruin everyone, because they're going to start taking off that, and when they're going to start taking off everyone else. The EU is not going to allow one country to freeze while 6 other countries around it are fine. They just will not allow that. So the key marker, they said, was actually 80%. And they said, especially if it's a country like Germany, a large country that's very reliant on gas, if a large country like Germany is under 80%, then that's going to pull in gas from another country, which means they're going to have to pull it in from other countries, which means they're going to have to pull it in from other countries, which means the whole thing is like a domino effect that's going to collapse. And basically everyone's going to get not enough. And you're still going to have the net effect of people dying or people freezing or people in the pain locker or whatever it is that's going to happen there. Companies shutting down, people not being able to run businesses, as we just saw, one just shutting down there because of gas shortage. So this European thing, it's a shit fight, and by all reports that I've been reading, it doesn't look good for Germany to get 80%. It doesn't look good for Germany to get 50% of their gas needs right now. And there are some reports that are much lower than that. Some reports are saying like we're 40, 30% of what their gas needs are. And so Europeans right now, they're looking at the coming winter, and it's going to be a bad one if they can't sort this gas thing out. It's going to be a real horrific winter over there. Yeah, so that's what's happening there. Afghans queue outside World Central Kitchen tents as post-quake food disruption efforts continue. So I did talk about this a couple of times. It's just another one of these interesting things where, I'm seeing the latest issue that people are blowing up about over here. I'm seeing people get upset and write angry tweets at KFC because they got cabbage now instead of lettuce because lettuce is in short supply. Meanwhile, thousands of people died in Afghanistan. And I know people don't care about Afghanistan. I'm not asking you to necessarily care about Afghanistan. I'm just saying shit happens in the world, right? There's other stuff going on. Take a step back, get a bit of perspective here. I do kind of care about Afghanistan because I've spent on and off 15 years of my life going in and out of that country. Not that I care about it, that I'm like, oh, Afghanistan, please. But I've got an interest in what goes on there. I've got an interest in the people there. I've met them. I've hung out with them. I've eaten meals with them. I've drunk with them. It's like, this is a place that I know. So again, though, like, this is a country that is relatively poor. They've had a national crisis in this huge earthquake that's killed thousands of people, and this is where communities, world communities, aid organizations should be sort of rushing in. Well, this is the sort of stuff. This is portending something that we need to pay attention to now. This is a harbinger of future efforts that are going to happen. If there is a world food shortage, I shouldn't say if, the world food shortage that we are experiencing now will get worse. Okay, that is already in the pipeline. That cannot be stopped now. It is going to get worse. Natural disasters are going to become more frequent and are going to be more impactful. They're going to get worse. No food, more natural disasters like this. It's not pointing in a good direction. So again, why would I bring this up for us as individuals? Well, this is something that we need to think about. Can we build those support mechanisms as best as possible? You never know what's going to happen. Everything can be taken away from you, yes, but that doesn't mean we don't plan for anything. So could my house burn down and I lose all my preps in a bushfire? Yes. Does that mean I should just not store anything then and have no food in there and just have a blank house? In fact, why even bother having a house? It could burn down. You know what? I'm going to die one day. Maybe I should just not live now. Okay. You can see where that thinking goes. We should try and build up as much as we can to support ourselves and then also support our family. So if our family got caught in a bushfire or a flood or an earthquake like this, that we could support them, that we can kind of surge and support that family, our friends, our community, as it were. Everything is a lesson for me. Everything, every day is a school day. Everything that I look at is a lesson. What am I learning from this? I'm looking at this. I'm going, right, this is a learning opportunity for me here. What can we learn from here? It's horrible. These people are in pain. They're suffering. They're starving. How can I learn from that also? Sri Lanka, just when you think things can't get any worse, they've now banned all private fuel use. You can't buy fuel if you're a private person. All fuel is now restricted to essential services until the 10th of July. And I don't know if they've done this, but they said they were going to look at shutting down all interregional public transport. So let's say you wanted to travel from Sydney to Melbourne on the train, or Sydney to Brisbane or something. Not going to happen. If what was happening in Sri Lanka was happening in Australia. So you can't move outside of your area. I don't know what they define as interregional, though. I'm talking about states and large distances. It might be even smaller. It might even be like sort of more local governance areas. The IMF is still like scrambling to get some money to oversee Sri Lanka because they are in the hurt locker. Clearly, it's not looking good for them. So you got these poor countries I just talked about, and it's easy, I think, for us as the snooty aristocrats, the richest of the rich people in the world. I don't care if you're sitting there right now and you're like, but I'm on the dole. I'm not that rich. You know what? You turn on a tap and water came out that you could drink, kind of, if you're into that. Well, guess what? You're richer than like 90% of the world because you can do that. Maybe you've got air conditioning. Maybe you've got a roof over your head. You are the top 5% of the world easily. So just don't forget that. But anyway, it's easy to look at places like Afghanistan and Sri Lanka and go like, oh yeah, well, they're poor and they can't manage their money or whatever. Well, here we go. I got sent a story from somebody on Instagram. Water company says no to supply requests from 5 food firms. So there's this country and 5 of their food firms, they're producing food, like farming, creating, manufacturing sort of food. They said, hey, we're running out of water here. You water company, like Nestle or Coca-Cola or something like that, who owns water, can you give us water? And that company went, nah, can't do it. What kind of vicious backwater country is this? What kind of, destitute despot government must they have? This is in, this is Dutch. This is in the Netherlands. The Netherlands. When I think Netherlands, I think green, I think rain, I think wet. Well, apparently not. They've had some, I want to get this right. They've had a string of dry years. It's not that they're in a drought or anything. They've just had a string of dry years. But that's reduced their basic supply of water. So now these at least 5 major food manufacturing companies have said to this water company, "Hey, can we get some water?" And they're like, "No." I mean, you can buy it if you want. It's in bottles. It's on the shelves. You can go ahead and buy it, but we're not giving it to you. Utter madness. But just to bring it home. Now, this is happening in not just a developed country, a very developed country, one of the most developed countries in the world. So this stuff is starting to leak out and it's starting to hit home. In case you hadn't noticed, in case you hadn't been to KFC lately and noticed that you're not getting lettuce, you're getting cabbage on your Zinger burger. Wake up, Australians. Sorry, I'm worked up about this KFC thing. If you eat KFC and you're upset about having cabbage instead of lettuce, let me know. We'll talk about it. And I might set you straight. I might reprioritize your world a little bit. US is shelling out more of its oil from its strategic reserves. Very strategically putting it out there because they're more expensive. So they're down now to the lowest level since 1986. That was a fair while ago. There was there was probably a lot less human beings on Earth and in the US in 1986. I'm going to hazard a guess. But they're getting down there now. So they just released another 6.9 million barrels of crude oil out into the system. Out you go. They're starting to put a lot of pressure on OPEC, on countries like Saudi Arabia, Oman, to, hey, up your oil, like get this stuff pumping, get it out there. So it remains to be seen whether they will be able to. In fact, Goldman Sachs has predicted that oil prices will rise 22% this summer. This summer being Northern Hemisphere summer, that being right now for us. Peter Schiff warns this recession will be the most severe yet as well. So why are they saying that fuel is going to go up 22%? Well, here's another story from Zero Hedge. Oil markets could face a doomsday scenario this week. Essentially what they're doing, they're having a look at what the oil-producing world can pump out. Expect lots of oil price volatility in the coming months as markets finally discover just how much spare capacity OPEC members really have. So like I said, OPEC members are getting a bit of pressure put on them at the moment. Like, hey, start pumping oil, lots of it now. Traditionally speaking, I think I get this right. I'm not really into oil and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure that OPEC is the big swing oil producing space, in that when we need more oil, it's usually OPEC who ramps up production or drops down production. They're the main linchpin there, and they're the ones who can kind of then cap the price, as it were, or make the price where it is. So that's why people call OPEC, in my mind, at least this is the way I think of it, that's why people call OPEC the cartel, the oil cartel, is because they're like going, actually, we're not producing as much now. Oh, the price is going up. Okay, we'll release more and we'll make the money. Oh, it's going down. Oh, we can't produce as much now. So that's what they're doing. All this pressure is being put on them now. Like, hey, pump this oil out. Or we're about to actually find out if they can. And if they cannot, danger, Will Robinson. Fuel could go through the roof. So this might be something where you're sitting there going like, oh, I was thinking about getting an extra Jerry or two. Well, I don't know where fuel's going to go. OPEC could come out and say, hey, we can produce another 6 million barrels a day, or billion barrels a day. So yeah, and fuel prices will then go down. I predict. That's just my prediction. So we might get cheaper fuel next week, or, which is what I think might happen, OPEC could go, hey, yeah, we can't really do that much. We can get X amount out, but we just don't have the infrastructure. Or even if we could, we can't get it out quick enough. Like, we can't actually ship it quick enough. At that point, the market will look at that and go like, hit the red button, and prices will skyrocket. How high? I don't know. But high. There are numbers being bandied around like 200. To give context, I'm talking about $200 US a barrel. and we freaked out when it went over 120. I think we're at 117. I didn't really have a good look at it this morning, but maybe at about 117, 118. It's dropped down to 114. I saw it at 111 at one stage. So we're kind of bouncing around that area. 200 is like, you think you're paying more a lot for petrol right now. If it starts creeping up there, just watch. You could probably pull up a little camping chair and sit there in front of the petrol station and just watch the digital counter tick up and away. That'll be, if I had to put a number on it, I would say over $4. Probably over $4 a litre here in Australia. Let that sink in. Yeah, oil, not looking good. Pakistan is staring at bankruptcy as well. Like I keep saying, the dominoes is going to start falling. Sri Lanka was not an isolated incident. Peru was not an isolated incident. Ecuador is not an isolated incident. They are increasing in their collapse, and the collapse is starting to show its effect in different areas. And when that builds up enough, we'll see bigger countries start to slide into. And this is going to be a black hole of economic destruction. Yeah, it's not going to be a good or fun time for anyone involved. Again, as Australians and New Zealanders, we are insulated against effects to a certain degree in that we have more fat within our system. But it doesn't mean, when I say insulated, I don't mean we won't feel effects. We'll just feel effects like increases of prices of petrol and food, inability to get lettuce on our Zinger burgers, not being able to click and all of a sudden something gets delivered to your door, and then it'll increase in speed very quickly. But we still have a lot of fat in our system. And the pain that we're going to be feeling is one of a spoilt child having a tantrum. Essentially, that's, it's the conveniences that we're going to lose first and foremost. But, all this is not pointing to a great future. So again, what do we do as preppers? We just need to start thinking about this sort of stuff and go, okay, well, what in the future is going to cost more? What in the future is going to be harder to get, and what is going to be maybe impossible to get? Those sort of things I want to start bringing into my household now. Thinking about alternative ways that I can do stuff. Thinking about alternative ways that I can generate electricity. Thinking about alternative ways that I can mend, repair, fix things. So a few things that I've been talking to people about recently have been concentrating on education. So if there are courses and things like that you've been thinking about doing, if there are books that you've been thinking about buying, maybe start to get them now, start to collect these sorts of things in. Upskill yourself. Try and do that now. I've been talking about how I'm heading overseas next month. Fingers crossed if the world doesn't blow up between now and then. And it's not something I'm doing for a business or anything like that. It's to do with hand construction of buildings and sheds and things like that, or whatever. But this is the sort of stuff that I'm thinking about. Okay, well, what can I do myself to upskill myself? And that's what I would encourage you to start thinking about out there, is really start thinking about, what can I do? How can I upskill myself? How can I level up as a human being right now? We all start to level up. We can all start to help each other out in the future, no matter what happens. Can I generate my own electricity? I've got an anecdote about that, but I'll talk about this one. Stage 6 power blackouts hit South Africa amid Labour unrest. So they've got a bit of Labour unrest. Here's an interesting point too. Whenever I'm looking at these power outages, there's always some excuse. There's always some like quite obvious smoking gun sitting there. It's like, oh, there's labor unrest, or there's manufacturing things, or there was a breakdown here, or there was this sort of, supply chain breakdown or something like that. But there are a lot of them. And there are many different reasons and excuses, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, does it? That electricity isn't as shored up as we thought it was. This is just yet another example. So South Africa, this is a pretty developed country where they're having power outages. So stage 6 means that they're getting 6 hours without power a day. By the looks of it, we'll experience 6 hours without power beginning Tuesday night. So, I mean, power outages aren't unheard of in the world, and especially not in South Africa. But this is just yet another thing where we're starting to see this, and especially to do with labor unrest. We're going to see more of this sort of stuff. We're going to see more of this, like, inflation. It's going to cause more friction. We're seeing the difference between those who have and those who have not increasing, and that makes people a bit tense, and they want to riot and they want to strike and do all this sort of stuff. And that's what we're going to see. So the anecdote that I had, I was talking to a good friend of mine and of the channel, and he was talking about up in Sydney that he was, going about his daily life and went to do something. He was like, no power. There's no power. And walked out to his letterbox and pulled out a letter that said, hey, yep, we're doing some unplanned power maintenance today. So it's going to be off from 7 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which to me, I'm like, that's a long time to be without power. And just to drop a letter in a letterbox and then do it within a short period of time. I'm assuming he probably checks his letterbox more than once every 3 months. So just to drop some letters in the letterbox and then go bang, no power. I don't know. It smells a bit funky to me, that whole thing. And planned maintenance. I don't know. I don't know about that. If you have been experiencing any power outages or anything weird like that, let me know. Let me know. I want to hear about it. All right, last one is just a little bit of a weather effect thing here. Worst Tokyo heat wave since 1875, which is actually when they started, apparently, that's 150 years ago. They started measuring things like the weather and how hot it was. So this is the worst heat wave they've had on record. 3 days have been getting smashed with this scorching heat, and they've got 76 people that were reportedly hospitalized with heat stroke yesterday, and there's more on the way for them. So it's not getting any better. Again, I like to point out weather effects. I'm a big believer that the weather is one of the things that we're going to have to contend with quite a bit. Something we're going to have to put a fair bit of thought into in all facets of our life. How we dress, how we act, when we go out, what we do, being able to read the weather, being able to look at the weather. So being able to look at weather reports, what's coming, what's going to happen, being more aware of that, but also being able to look at the meteorological weather reports. And if you don't know how to do that, it's a pretty interesting skill that I think you should pick up. Then the next level is going back to the ye olde ways, actually looking at different weather effects, understanding what certain clouds actually mean and what this portends, certain weather effects that you can see and go like, okay, this more than likely means that it's going to be rainy today, or this more than likely means that it will be hot today, or blah, 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 blah. So being able to actually pick up on weather and things like that, or if you're like me and you got like dodgy hips and knees from years of abuse, and you're like, my gammy hip, and you're like, ooh, rains are coming. That's exactly how I do it too. Me and my brother. Oh, look at each other. Rains are coming, isn't it? Rains are coming. Better get the cows in. Okay, we're not cow farmers. I don't know. why I said that. But yeah, so a lot of heat. We're going to see heat waves. We're going to see stuff like this happen. Tokyo obviously getting smashed with it at the moment. It's Northern Hemisphere. But yeah, get used to that and start thinking about that, because that's something that we're really going to have to start planning for, and thinking about even how we construct our homes. Constructing our homes so they're more passive in their heating and cooling. And so, like, that's something that I'm doing at the moment. If this ever passes through the very slow, bureaucratic, and painful process of DA in my area, I'll be building a solar passive home that will hopefully be able to retain heat and cool itself to a certain extent without me necessarily having to put in outside inputs. Yeah, okay, so that's it for today. Mainly what I was yarning on about today was a lot of shortages and stuff like that are happening throughout the world. Not a whole lot that's like specific to Australia, but as I said, we're an interconnected global economy. So what happens in one area of the world generally affects other areas of the world. So we will be affected by that. So again, these are the things we want to be thinking about. Today is that last day of those end of financial year consumerist buy type things. But I will say this about it, that you can pick up some good deals and some things out there. One in particular I'll throw out there, because I'm talking about electricity today, was I did see that there was end of financial year sales for EcoFlow. So EcoFlow, I own an EcoFlow Delta solar generator. I rate it. I reckon it's great. It's very portable. I can pick it up, lug it around. I can chuck it in the car. I can drive it somewhere. I can take it camping. It charges off solar. It charges off the wall. It charges off 12-volt batteries. Again, no, I don't work for the company. I don't represent them in any way. What I do is I test gear a lot. I like gear. I'm a gear nerd. I'm a gear junkie. In fact, I am pretty broke and, in certain ways in my life, financially irresponsible, because I buy so much gear. But I like it. And when I find something that I like to recommend it to people. So that's just a version of what I'm talking about. There are other solar generators out there. Please feel free to try them out. I'm not saying this is the only one that's out there, but it's one that I like. I've talked to other people who've used it. They also like them. Yeah, end of financial year. If you've got money burning a hole in your pocket, maybe throw some down on some preparations that are going to help you out in the future. Right, well, that's it for today. I'm going to wrap it up there. If you've got any questions, as always, please feel free to shoot them through. Little bit of a pop quiz for you. My last reel, let me know what the music that I have on in the background, let me know what movie it's from. Just a funny one. It was about water, so you can see the link there. If you didn't see that reel, check it out. I was horrifically sick last week, and I've been racking my brain to try and think of what it was that caused the sickness, and I reckon I've found it. I reckon it was that. So check out that reel. Apart from that, everyone, thanks for joining me again. Thanks for all the messages that people have been sending through. I really appreciate it. Each and every one of them, like whatever it is, even if you just like react to one of my stories and give me a laugh or a thumbs up, or, say, hey, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, you're an idiot. I don't care. It's good. Thanks for letting me know. I can adjust what I'm doing and try and make my content better for everyone. Yeah. Hope you're doing well out there. Keep prepping, keep safe, and Semper Paratus.